Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TBP podcast, where we talk about all things Houston Texans. Hope everyone is staying safe during these crazy times. Everyone's staying inside, washing their hands. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the first episode of this new Texans Bullpen podcast. It is currently April 6th, 2020, and we have a lot to discuss here. Yesterday, I took it to Instagram. I asked you guys what topics you guys would want me to cover in this first episode, and about 95% of you said to talk about Bill O'Brien, the Hopkins trade. What does this mean for Houston moving forward? So that's what I'll cover in this episode. So the schedule I have planned is I will film a podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it would come out on those days. So it's prone to change, and it probably will, but that's my plan as of right now. So today we'll talk about the Bill O'Brien situation, the trade, my thoughts on it. And then Wednesday we'll probably talk about the draft prospects, who to target. And then Friday I'll see what I have planned for them. So let's backtrack this all up. The Hopkins trade for David Johnson happened on Monday morning, March 16th. And it was a crazy day to say the least. Not only did I come back, did I start my online courses. I remember the day pretty clearly because I woke up, I attended my math lecture. I believe it just finished, and I got the alert saying we just acquired David Johnson from Arizona. And before I found out Hopkins was included in the deal, I thought this was a great pickup, to say the least. David Johnson was the guy in Arizona about not too long ago, probably, I believe 2-3 years ago. So let me just pull up his stats here. So overall, minus Hopkins included in the trade, I thought it was a good pickup. We lost Carlos Hyde due to him not agreeing to our contract. We let Lamar Miller go after he suffered a torn ACL before the start of the 2019 season. So our running back room only contained David Johnson, and that was pretty much it. All right, so 2016, David Johnson. So hold on, let me just pull this up. 2016, David Johnson was the man around the league and in Arizona. He played all 16 games. He had 293 carries, rushed for 1,239 yards, 16 touchdowns on the ground, and all of that was just on the ground. In the air, he had 80 receptions, 879 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the air. So that's a total of 20 touchdowns in 2016, and about over 2,000 yards total for David Johnson in 2016. But the next year, he got injured. I believe he broke his wrist. He missed the whole season. And then 2018, he did all right. 258 rushes, 940 yards, 7 touchdowns on the ground, and then 50 receptions, 446 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the air. 2018 wasn't too bad, but, not the same as the 2016. And then 2019, we already know what happened. Kenyon Drake came in. He lost his job. But, I don't believe he fit Cliff Kingsbury's system in Arizona, especially with the lackluster offensive line. I mean, I'm not saying our offensive line is any better, but I believe he will fit in O'Brien's system better than Arizona. So we acquired David Johnson. I was thinking, he can revive his career in Houston. Why not? I'm all for it. And then before the news came out that we acquired David Johnson, there was a rumor that came out. There were 2 teams who believed DeAndre Hopkins would be available via trade due to the fact that the Texans are in draft hell. and this was from Peter King. Now, I got so much hate for, not hate, but people didn't believe me. They're like, quit posting fake news, you know, you always do this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just posting rumors. Free agency starting, right? So everything's up for grabs. You know, everything's you know, a mystery. No one knows what's going to happen. So I posted that rumor hours before the trade happened. And then once the news came out of what the trade involved, I think the internet blew up immensely. So for David Johnson, we traded star wide receiver, top 3 wide receiver, arguably the best wide receiver in the league, DeAndre Hopkins, and I believe a 4th round pick for David Johnson and a 2nd round pick. Now, like many of you, I was not happy. I was shocked, to say the least. You know, my phone was blowing up from everyone I know. You know, just making a joke out of Houston, you know. How could you do such a stupid trade? Not only did we trade DeAndre Hopkins away, you know, Deshaun Watson's number 1 target he looks for, his go-to guy, his safety blanket. Not only do we trade him away, we didn't even get a 1st rounder for him. We got a running back who hasn't really been the same since his 2016 year. And no disrespect to David Johnson. I think he's a great running back. He has a great work ethic. But, you know, giving up DeAndre Hopkins for him, that's not a good trade at all. You know, for DeAndre Hopkins, we should have at least got 2 first rounders. If it was 2 first rounders and David Johnson and maybe add another player, I would accept that trade. That would be a fair trade. But that didn't happen. You know, everyone was speculating why this happened, because if you look at DeAndre Hopkins, this is a guy who's had no character issues whatsoever. He's never gotten in trouble. He's never complained once. Throughout O'Brien's carousel of quarterbacks, he's went through Matt Schaub, Case Keenum, Ryan Fitzpatrick, T.J. Yates, Ryan Mallett, Tom Savage. Did I say that? Tom Savage, Brian Hoyer, Brandon Weeden, Brock Osweiler. You know, he went through all those quarterbacks and has never once complained. The only time he's complained was his one-day holdout because he wanted a new contract, and he deserved it. And it was just one day. The next day he came back, they got the deal done. You know, that was the only time he's ever complained. He's never had any issues off the field. You know, he's a leader. So it brought to question, why did Bill O'Brien trade him out of Houston? And there were 2 stories that came out. There were 2 stories that came out regarding the reasons why. The first one was a rumor made by Michael Irvin 2 days after the trade happened. He claimed that he talked to DeAndre Hopkins over the phone. He asked what happened, like what was the real reason, and allegedly Hopkins told him that O'Brien called him into a meeting and said, the last time I had to do a meeting like this was with Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez, murderer. The murderer Aaron Hernandez. That's who Bill O'Brien just compared DeAndre Hopkins to. DeAndre Hopkins isn't even close to what Aaron Hernandez was. And he went on to say he didn't like his baby mamas around. Bill O'Brien didn't like how how much DeAndre Hopkins influenced the locker room. So that story came out, and it was never confirmed nor denied by Hopkins. He went on Twitter to say this is being blown way out of proportion. He's excited about playing in Arizona, and that was that. He never said the story isn't true, nor is it false. He just said it's being blown way out of proportion. He has all the respect towards Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans, and he always will. So this rumor, we don't know if it's true, but a few former Texans came out and they had more to say regarding this, which makes me to believe that this wasn't a rumor and this actually happened. Because why else would Michael Irvin go out and say on live television, DeAndre Hopkins told him that Bill O'Brien said this. I just don't believe he would do that. So that story came out, and then this guy on Twitter tweeted at Braxton Miller, former Texans wide receiver, I believe former third-round pick in 2016. He tweeted, "Was he like this when you were here in Houston?" And Braxton Miller replied with, "Yes, sir." And then Jalen Strong came at O'Brien hot. He said, "This is who Bill O'Brien is. Y'all thought it was my fault I wasn't seeing the field? The man simply didn't like me because I was a product of my environment. Performance means nothing. He wasted my first 3 years, ultimately ruining my NFL career. I never knew how to kiss ass." That was a big one. And then another former Texans wide receiver, Davier Posey, he's tweeted, "I agree, bro. Same with your boy. Traded after healthy inactives 4 out of 16 games. The reason he said, birth of my son made me absent. Didn't know if I could handle family and football, and he wished I showed upset emotions. OB makes football decisions off emotions and personal preference." So this trade and the story that came out, that sparked tension. Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans name is slandered because of this. There was a report that a potential defensive back target we were trying to go after in free agency rejected us because of the things he's heard in Houston. And I personally, my opinion, I believe it was Chris Harris. Because you look at Denver. Who's in Denver, right? Kareem Jackson. Now AJ Boye. Those two guys probably said some stuff that pushed Chris Harris away from Houston. And it's because of this guy, Bill O'Brien, here. And then there was another report, and this is what Bill O'Brien stated not too long ago, I believe 2-3 days ago. He said that DeAndre Hopkins wanted a raise, and that we couldn't go in that direction. DeAndre Hopkins is a top 3, arguably the number 1 best wide receiver in the league. He wants a raise. You have to give it to him. He has been a team player for all of these years. He has mentored Deshaun Watson. He's been the safety blanket. He was the next wide receiver after Andre Johnson. You trade that away, who do we have? We have an injury-prone Will Fuller who can hardly stay healthy the whole year. We have Kenny Stills, who was a new acquisition, but he's not a number 1. But he could prove me wrong. We just acquired Randall Cobb to a 3-year, I believe it was $27 million contract. Now, Randall Cobb is a good wide receiver, but he's not DeAndre Hopkins. We have Kiki Kuti, who never sees the field because he's either injured or O'Brien doesn't put him in. And we have DeAndre Carter, special teamer mostly. and he's all right, nothing too special. So we have that. Those are our wide receivers now. So Hopkins wanted more money. O'Brien didn't want to give it to him. He shipped him out. So, in a way, I can see where he's coming from, but at the same time, I don't. Because think about this. We need to lock up Deshaun Watson long term, and he's looking for a big contract. Look at Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are about to give Patrick Mahomes a huge contract. Huge. And Deshaun Watson wants to match Mahomes or even go a bit higher. So they want to give Deshaun Watson a huge contract soon. They're trying to lock up Laramie Tunsil, who wants to be the highest paid offensive lineman in the league. He's looking to be paid about 20 to 22 mil a year. So I get that reasoning. We have to lock people up. We can't include Hopkins' contract in there. But it's the fact that we traded DeAndre Hopkins and took on David Johnson's contract, which is a terrible contract. We fully took it on. We signed Randall Cobb to a 3-year, 27 mil. We signed, I believe, Brown safety Eric Murray. Let me double. We signed safety Eric Murray to a 3-year, 20 mil contract. So we signed those two players. I think those were the most expensive contracts we've had, plus David Johnson. And we just resigned Whitney Merciless. We gave him an extension. So I can understand that reasoning aspect, but it's the fact that we traded Hopkins and got nothing in return besides a second rounder and David Johnson when we should have gotten more. Bill O'Brien traded both Jadeveon Clowney and DeAndre Hopkins and did not get one first-round pick. It's insane. It really is. And what gets him the right to do this? O'Brien didn't like the way Hopkins was influencing the locker room. And he's trying so hard to be Bill Belichick, and it's not working at all. He was with the Patriots organization for a few years. I believe he was the offensive coordinator. Everyone called him this quarterback whisperer, But that soon people started to see that he's not. He tries to do Belichick's, if it's not my way, it's the highway, and it just doesn't work. The reason why it works for Belichick is the fact that he's winning. People want to play for Belichick because he wins consistently. The Patriots have been a dynasty since the early 2000s, and it just ended this year with Brady going to Tampa Bay. And Bill O'Brien is trying so hard to have that same, culture with the Texans, but it's not working because he hasn't done anything. If we look at Bill O'Brien's resume, his regular season record is 52-44, which is above average, just above 50% winning percentage. Postseason, he's 2-4. And let's talk about the postseason real quick. We have gotten embarrassed, I believe, every playoff appearance we've been to. All right, let's look at his playoff performances, right? His first playoff appearance as Texans head coach was 2015. It was Texans versus Chiefs in the wild card round. We got embarrassed 30-0. 30-0. Absolutely embarrassed. At the time, we didn't think too much about it. It was Brian Hoyer played awful. We couldn't do anything. J.J. Watt got injured. So the blame wasn't on O'Brien at the time. It was on the team. The next year, Brock Osweiler's our quarterback. It's the Raiders versus Texans in the wild card. A 12-4 Raiders team who had just lost David Carr due to, I believe it was a broken leg. So now Connor Cook is starting this wild card game, and that's pretty much a given win. If you don't win this game against a rookie who's starting in the playoffs at home, then that's a huge embarrassment. But we ended up winning because it was a given win. We win that game. We go to Foxborough. It was a close game in the first half, and then it completely spiraled out of control. Osweiler started throwing picks, couldn't stop Brady. We lost I think 34-17, something like that. Let me double check this. 34-16. The next year, we draft Deshaun Watson. That season was just plagued with injuries. So that happened. That next year, we finished with an 11-5 record. We're playing in the wild card against the Colts at home. We got embarrassed 21-7. 21-7. At this point, everyone's questioning Bill O'Brien because he is just getting outcoached every year in the playoffs. It's ridiculous. Even this year, we finished with a 10-6 record. We faced the Bills at home in the wild card round, and we barely made it out alive there. We were down 16-0, I think, at halftime. And you know who came back? A man named Deshaun Watson put the team on his back and won 22-19 in overtime. And then we go on to Kansas City, divisional round. We were up 21-0. 21-0. And we lost 51-31. How does that happen? How do you have that big of... And his play calls were ridiculous. We were 4th and 1 inside the Chiefs' 20. We don't go for it. We chip a field goal. Okay. And then it was, I think, 4th and 7 on our inside our territory. He calls a fake punt. We don't make it. That allows the Chiefs to come back. Later in the game, 4th down, he decides to punt it. Deshaun Watson literally had to go up to his face and be like, "No, why aren't we going for it?" And then Bill O'Brien gets upset. They go for it. I don't think they converted, but that's not the point. It's the fact that he gave up, and Deshaun Watson wants to, still compete. So, Bill O'Brien's definitely in question here. Getting embarrassed every year in the playoffs. Trading away 2 star players and not getting any first rounders from them. Trying so hard to be Bill Belichick when it's not working. And he may potentially be driving out Deshaun Watson. Because Deshaun Watson took to Twitter. I think it was about a week after the trade went down, maybe a few days. Let me look here. it was a week after the trade went down. He tweeted, "I don't know how I'ma make it out of here clean. Can't even keep track of who plays for the other team. Iconic duos rip and split at the seams." And then Tyler Conway on Twitter replied, "I'm just saying you could do better. Tell me, have you heard that lately?" With a photo of Bill Belichick. And Deshaun Watson liked that tweet. I think after everyone found out that he liked the tweet, he later unliked it. Now this is bad. This is bad for Bill O'Brien. Now the tweet that Deshaun Watson tweeted, those were lyrics from "Emotionless" by Drake. And you can argue that they're just lyrics. You shouldn't read too much into them, but behind every tweet is a meaning. You don't just, considering what just happened, you don't just randomly choose that, section of lyrics and decide to tweet about it. You just don't. No one does that. And the fact that he liked the tweet replying, saying you could do better, have you heard that lately? With a picture of Bill Belichick, and he liked that. That just, backs up everything. He may want out of Houston because of this trade, and if O'Brien doesn't fix it, he may want out. You just took away his number one receiver, his go-to guy, one of his closest friends, one of the top wide receivers in the league. You just traded him away for peanuts. So he doesn't know what the future holds for him. His contract, he's entering his final year of his rookie contract. May exercise his 5th year, franchise tag if he doesn't cooperate. But this is not a good look. People come to the Houston Texans now just to play with Deshaun Watson. And if he's out, no one's going to come. So, and a lot of you asked, what's the future if Deshaun Watson chooses to leave? And what I'll say to that is, if Deshaun Watson leaves, then we have to rebuild. There's no other choice. Deshaun Watson leaves, we rebuild. We trade Watt to a team where he has a chance to win a Super Bowl. We trade away Merciless, trade away everyone for picks. Look at the Dolphins. Look at what they did. They traded everyone. Everyone. They traded Tannehill. They traded Drake. They traded Minka Fitzpatrick. They traded all these guys, got a ton of picks in return. They just made a huge splash in this year's free agency. So that's what the Texans have to do if we end up losing Deshaun Watson. Now, the chances of us losing Deshaun Watson are very slim. If it gets worse, if Bill O'Brien makes things worse, then it becomes more of a possibility. But as of right now, I don't think he will, based on his personality. We traded up. We gave up a lot to trade up and draft this kid. So, and I don't see it in his personality to want to just bail on the city of Houston when we're on his side than O'Brien's, But if he wants out, I won't be surprised. Because just look at everything that's being unfolded here. Now, regarding everyone wanting O'Brien fired, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, especially after this, Texans conference call that went down a few days ago. Cal McNair saying he understands the decision, he supports it, which blows my mind. I don't know how Cal McNair as an owner can sit back and watch all of this unfold and be content with it. just blows my mind. And NFL execs around the league can't believe it either. You can't. How can you trade a number one wide receiver in their prime just because you guys had conflict or he wanted a new deal? You know, the Giants got more for Odell Beckham Jr. than we did. And in my opinion, I believe the Giants won the trade. It's frustrating as a fan. It's probably frustrating as for the players too. The city of Houston has no idea what the future holds. Now for this upcoming season, we're still a playoff team. Just because we lose Hopkins doesn't mean we're out of the playoff race. We're still in it, but we won't make it far. You know, with David Johnson, that's another receiving back. So we have two receiving backs and David Johnson and Duke Johnson in the backfield. You know, now the good thing about not having Hopkins is that Deshaun Watson can now spread the ball. You know, sometimes he would only be staring down Hopkins, and he would only be staring him down, not looking at any other receivers, and he would get sacked. But now that Hopkins is gone, he can spread the ball to other receivers. He doesn't have to stare down one person. You know, it'll spread the field. So we talked about O'Brien. We talked about David Johnson. We talked about Deshaun's future. Hold on. I'm looking through your guys' suggestions for this topic. So I think this will wrap up this first episode of the TBP podcast. We're about a little bit over 30 minutes in. I covered Bill O'Brien. I covered David Johnson. I covered Deshaun Watson's future. I believe Wednesday I'll cover who we should target in the draft, and stuff like that. So for this first episode, I think this is going to be a good wrap up. Make sure you guys subscribe for more. There's going to be podcasts coming as of right now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that's prone to change anytime. So make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on. Be sure to follow the Instagram if you haven't, Texans Bullpen, Twitter, Texans Bullpen. And I'll catch you guys later. Just be safe.